Borley Borlstein here, and I saw uh, Brahms, The Boy 2, which is the most confusing titling because the implication is there's could be like because The Boy is the subtitle of the actual title, which is Brahms, but you would think that you would subtitle the first part and then or you would sequel the first part and the subtitle would be the unique part of the sequel. But who gives a shit? I mean, I spent more time thinking about the title of this movie just now than anybody else has ever in the history of mankind, or even the people who made the fucking movie. So who gives a shit? The film is about like a 2 out of 10. It is the most boring fucking paint by numbers movie you've ever fucking seen. Like, the dad is so stereotypical fucking like disengaged, oblivious idiot you've ever seen in a horror movie. Like, there is some crazy shit that happens, and the dad's just like brushes it off with like, oh, whatever, kind of saying that it's like if you had any brain cells, you would be like, dude, what the fuck? Like, we have to do something about this thing. But the dad's just like, oh, yeah, no, that's perfectly normal, you know? And the film showed promise in the beginning because the dad was at work, so that's why he wasn't home. So there's maybe this kind of idea that he is disengaged. He isn't interested in his family, and that's why he's so oblivious. But nah, I mean, when they're going on a vacation and then he's also like disengaged and doesn't give a fuck and is like an oblivious idiot, it just comes off as bad writing. Because the reason he's disengaged, the reason he doesn't give a crap, and the reason he doesn't take any interest in the story going on is, well, one, the story is boring as shit, but two, the script doesn't know what to do with the dad having a male figure in the story. Because this film is a horror film that works on the premise of vulnerability, but vulnerability only applied to women. Like, if there is a big man, then the man can't be scared. That's literally one of the like conceits the film operates under. Like, no man in this film is ever put in a situation to be frightened, and they always show up as hero saviors to fight the villain. The film is like very fucking strange in that regard. And it's frankly like that's why it's so fucking boring. I mean, haven't we seen enough of this fucking shit throughout like the 70s and 80s and 90s? Like, haven't we got done with the scared white woman horror movie? Like, what the fuck? How much are you gonna shit this plot out of your fat fucking ass? And especially Katie Holmes, like the dude she's married to, which I give the movie a little bit of credit, because usually it's like young hot starlet and then like 45-year-old male, and it's like really awkward. In this film, it was like the inverse. Like, Katie Holmes looks like she's fucking 50, and then the guy she's with looks like he's like 30. That was a little awkward. And the problem is the film rests a lot of the acting, like the quality of the film comes out of the actress lead. And I don't think Katie Holmes is terrible, but Katie Holmes has a very good ability to look distraught as if she just got left at an insane asylum and she knows her family's never coming back. That's where her acting excels. In this movie, and it does one good thing. It does one scene well, and that one scene that it does well happens in the first 5 minutes, and then you can just leave the theater. So let's go over the first good scene. So we just got done talking with Dad on the cell phone, and he's not going to be home for dinner. Flash forward to nighttime. Everybody's sleeping, and there was a trick that was played on Mom by the son. So she thinks, oh, there's, a trick being played, on Mom again. So she's walking around the house, and it's all dark. And this is when I noticed something. I was like, why is the camera so shit in this scene? Like, the way it was moving just seemed very awkward. And then as I followed, the camera's following Katie Holmes, and she's about to go down the stairs. It's not cutting, and the camera follows down from the other part. You can see her go down the stairs, and this is where I was like, oh, it's going to be an uncut scene. That's cool. I like uncut scenes. I like when the camera doesn't cut. I feel like that's pretty important in a horror film because there's nothing worse than cut, loud noise, shocking image. That you get a 0 out of 10 and you fucking failed. You have to go back to fucking stupid school and learn how to make a movie again, because if you do that shit, you get an F. And this film does that about 15 times, so it gets 15 Fs. So they got about 15 life sentences of not making shit movies. So good luck. So we're following Katie home. She goes down the stairs, and then we can see through the stairs because they're wood with no backing behind them. And there's a man in black that's like standing behind the stairs. And maybe we think, oh, this is some kind of weird, perverse game with the husband or something, like, you don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't know what the fuck's going on, but it's really frightening. It's like a home invasion thing. And she's walking around. She's like, oh, I think the son's name was the son's name Jude? I think the son's name was Jude. So she's like, oh, Jude, is this one of your tricks? And she's walking around, and then she walks back, and she notices that I think Jude is like on the floor, and she's like, shh, mom, there's somebody in the house. And then she's like, what? Somebody's in the house. Like, it's so fucking dumb how she responds. And then she gets attacked, and she like fights him off pretty well. And then she gets hit in the back of the head. And then afterwards, it's just like, oh, it's sad, Katie Holmes' recovery hour. And so the film has the bones of a good idea, but the problem is that they should have told that movie. Instead, we have this intro that is actually frightening. A home invasion in your nice, safe home. They have an electronic security device, so the film is frightening because you wouldn't think you get a home invasion, but then they have a home invasion and they have to deal with that stress. And then the family goes on a vacation to the fucking wilderness, and we're introduced to the real horror in the movie, which is the plot. What the fuck were they thinking? How do you have a home invasion with actual threats, actual people that can harm you? And then we're gonna cut to, okay, so now this is where the real horror starts. It's a fucking doll that looks really dumb and is seemingly possessed by a monster or something. I don't fucking know. I mean, I know because I saw the end of the movie, but I don't want to spoil it yet, even though this movie sucks, so we'll get to that. And this is the other part of the film that fucking sucks, is that horror has two big issues, and it starts and ends with white privilege. The film only exists for, or like the plot of this film only exists for like white privileged people, because, oh no, we've had, first off, they live in an incredibly affluent house, and they live in London with security, and the dad, and the only one person seemingly works. The dad does, works enough. He seems to be working a lot, but he makes enough for all of them to live comfortably. So, like, that dude's got to have a huge fucking salary. But the thing that I hate about white privilege horror is that, oh no, something's happened. And now I have to dedicate my whole life to being scared in this horror movie. Like, horror is a thing that can only happen to somebody who has enough affluence to spend the time being scared. Like, if Katie Holmes had a job, if they didn't have enough money to pay rent, if they had to keep working to barely make, like, at the end of the year, like, they'll have like a $5,000 gain in their bank account if they do everything right. Like, this story would be impossible to tell, because one, how would they be able to afford the vacation getaway from their problems that actually leads them to more problems? It's just so exhausting, giving these stories so much goddamn like credence in the horror genre of a white privileged family that has nothing else going on, so they have all the free time in the world to be scared by some spooky paranormal activity fucking thing. And that was the good thing about Paranormal Activity, is that they were just renting the apartment, I think, and they were reasonable people, and they came and go, and you saw them in their life experiencing the horror, but it wasn't that they just spent all their time on it. The reason they spend all their time on it is because the time that we see them spending on it is when they're asleep. That's something everybody fucking does. And that's the one bad part about Hereditary, is that the film is steeped in an affluent family that has the free time to indulge the horror aspect that they're, having to take on. Whereas, if you work, a part-time job and you're not able to make enough money, you don't have time to fucking experience any of this stupid horror shit. You'd fucking get rid of that. Like the real horror that exists in real people's lives is you grow an attachment to something as a child and your family tells you to get rid of it and they have no respect for how you feel and they treat you like shit and you have to move on from that. That's real fucking horror. This movie, like I have no sympathy for the boy. The boy did, I think, a pretty good job in acting like a total fucking, like he looked like a total asshole. Like he gets scared too during the break-in and he becomes mute and he doesn't talk and he writes on a little pad. And I really wanted one scene for like one of the parents to just be like, just to take the damn thing and throw it away from him, because he just came off as so like pathetic. And I know what the plot was going for. It's like, oh, he's, he feels separated from the world and he's really, he needs security. And then the Brahms doll's talking to him and helping him. And, it's taking advantage of a vulnerable person. That's once again a really fucking boring paint by numbers plot in horror movies. And this film could be okay if it didn't like have moments of pure exposition. So they have some visual exposition at one point where Katie Holmes is typing away and you see her Google searches coming on the computer and she's learning about the plot. And then you won't fucking believe it, the fucking huntsman guy shows up and he sits Katie Holmes down and just tells him the whole plot of the movie about the boy being trapped in the woods and everything. And it was like, dude, I got that. You had enough stuff in the film. Like, I don't know. I assume the director was insecure, or the writer or whoever. Somebody was insecure and they thought, oh shit, our audience isn't going to get this deep movie. It's too fucking deep. It's too meaningful. We have to sit the audience down before the final act of the film, and we have to explain to them the plot. And the plot is fucking stupid. I don't know. Basically, there's like a kid, like a corpse of a still decaying child is inside the doll, and he has like selective demon powers that only work when the plot needs them to, which is basically never, except for one scene. And and it doesn't even make any sense because, so presumably the huntsman is allied with the Brahms doll, but then at the end of the movie we find out, or what happens is that the Brahms doll like levitates the huntsman and explodes him with a huge inferno from the stove, or like the wood heater in the basement, and then the boy like grabs the horrifying Brahms doll and he's like, it's okay, Brahms, and he throws him into the fire and the Brahms doll burns and you can see like the corpse of the human that was in the Brahms doll burn up. And then we cut to the end and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be one of those movies. It's gonna be a triggered movie. Like, we didn't really get rid of the evil, so like I'm just waiting for like, when the triggered evil part's gonna happen. And of course, everybody goes to sleep, everything's okay. And then the little boy gets up at night and he goes over to his closet and he grabs the weird, creepy Brahms mask and he's like, it's okay, Brahms. Everything will be okay here. I think you'll like it. As long as Mommy and Daddy follow the rules. Like, that was... And then the movie cuts to black and that's the end of the movie. And it was like, wow. So, like, I guess there was... But he's talking to Brahms. But, like, why is he so retarded? Because, like, the kid said... oh, I'm afraid I tried to control him and then now he's saying that he's gonna hurt you and blah blah. Like, the kid was just so inconsistent, and if he was like being manipulated, or if he was manipulating, or if he was like just literally a lunatic. Like, the child is just all over the place in terms of motivation in his like psychological state. It is, you cannot pin it down what the fuck's going on with him. And there's one great part where like the little boy runs away into the big house that they're not supposed to go in, and he's running through the walls, and then the mom, Katie Holmes, is following him, and then it goes to the scene where like he comes out of this doorway with that weird Brahms mask on, and he's like looking at her like a weirdo, and then she's like, the film does this like shaky, vibrating kind of like close-up of both their faces, and then they're just looking at her for like a while, and it's really awkward and weird. And then he's like, oh, haha, Mommy, I just wanted to trick you and play with you. And it's like, no, non-insane person thinks running like any of the shit that you just did is playing or for what the it was just so fucking stupid. And the scares, like, this film has more jump scares that cut to innocuous shit than legitimate scares that are meant to be scary. So for example, when the family first goes out to the like secluded vacation home, there's a jump cut where it cuts to a dog barking and he's like fucking going ape shit at the camera, and it's just like holy shit. And the audience that I was seeing this with reacted more to that jump scare. And then there was one other jump scare that happened that was like a non jump scare that it cut to like something innocuous, but it was loud and shrieking. And it's just so pathetic and obvious. And those were more shocking than the actual scares. The film had one decent scare where like Brahms is in the living room and then he like runs off into the boy's room, and then you think like, oh, the boy did it, or like the Katie Holmes thinks the boy did it, and then the boy's like, oh, I was in the bathroom, and it's like, what the fuck, you know? And the film tries to ride this line between like, oh, is it the boy or is Katie Holmes really crazy? But it's like, you know, Katie Holmes isn't crazy. Because the dad thinks that Katie Holmes crazy, and anything the dad thinks is just objectively fucking wrong because he's the dumbest character I've ever seen in a horror movie. He's just so out of touch. And two, it's a sequel to another movie about a scary doll, so obviously the fucking doll's coming for him, right? Like, it's not going to be like the doll's not like really possessed. But the fatalist fucking flaw with this movie is that it starts off with an actual home invasion with real threats to their lives, and Katie Holmes has a brain injury. And then I'm supposed to be scared by a doll? Are you fucking kidding me? A fucking doll? Like, dude, if I had to suffer a home invasion and then my son wants a creepy fucking doll, I'm taking that shit and throwing that shit the fuck out. Like, I'm not indulging. Because that's the problem with this film, too, is that the parents are so wealthy, they can indulge the son in every little minor, you know, neurotypical aspect that he has that leaves him more damaged than helped. And it's just so fucked up. And the psychologist lady is like, I don't even know if the shit she said was like offensively wrong, but it was offensively fucking boring. And it was just like meant to just keep the plot along without the audience questioning how stupid everything is. It's like, oh, like, I know the plot's really stupid, but we have this psychological expert who's going to tell you that really we should keep doing this thing that we're doing. And then that way it justifies the plot being stupid. So, yeah, the film's like a 2 out of 10. The acting is... I didn't actually think the acting in The Boy was that bad, because I thought the faces he was doing was like actually pretty effective for like his kind of selective mutism or whatever. But it was just so fucking paint by numbers. Like, and I like horror movies. That's the only reason this doesn't get a 1. It gets a 2 because I like horror movies, but it gets a 1 because holy fuck, you'll be bored to tears if you don't like horror movies. So film fucking sucks. Fatal flaws are too great. It starts off with a scare that's better than the actual horror part of the film that it's named after. And Katie Holmes, I really struggle with this because I don't know. Katie Holmes just looks really bad in this movie. And they didn't, like, and she can do some really good faces that really convey an internal sense of strife and pain. But it just looked like shit. It was fucking garbage. You know, it would have been better if Tom Cruise was the fucking person hiding in the closet or the fucking walls of the house or whatever. Like, and that was the other part of the film when they revealed that the last movie, there was a boy living in the walls of a house, and I just almost burst out laughing. It was like, dude, you really think that was a good plot? Like, this is what the scriptwriter thought was a good thing to put in the movie, is to reference the last movie where somebody was living in the walls of a house. Like, oh, holy shit. It was fucking garbage. But if you like the movie, what's wrong with you? Watch some other movies, Jesus.